Hello, my name is Jonathan Forster and welcome to the Multi-Story Thinking Podcast. I'm an interior designer and educator. My job is to improve quality of life and productivity by helping people to create beautiful and practical spaces to live and work in. The Multi-Story Thinking Podcast takes an educational slant to the interior design world. So sit back, relax as we help unravel the mysteries of interior design. Welcome to podcast number 1, the inaugural, our opener, our maiden trip into the world of interior design, where I'll be interviewing Naomi Cleaver. Naomi Cleaver is an interior designer, writer, TV presenter and keynote speaker. In today's episode, we get her definition of interior design, find out how she made the transition from design agent to running her own practice via TV celebrity designerdom. She reveals her approach to designing student accommodation, and we discover her love of constraints and why being design-led is not something to brag about. This is quite an interesting location to speak because for me this is your classic interior design, because this used to be the Petit Maison restaurant, separate identity, separate interior, different interior, and has been absorbed
into the glow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And now you're looking around here, you're thinking I'm sitting in some ancient space.
Yeah.
But it's only about 2 or 3 years old.
Is it really?
Yeah.
So even that little old ancient-looking fireplace.
I think that was probably there.
Right.
And, some of this would have been here. I don't actually know. I never went to the Petit Maison, but some of it is definitely, contrived in a way.
The panelling looks new.
Yeah. So that's, to me, is one area of interior design, which is, about the transformation of spaces.
Mm.
What, have you got an idea of what you think interior design is, or how you approach interior design?
Yeah, well, the problem is, as you know, Jonathan, interior design is a bit of a bastard term, isn't it? I think about this all the time, and recently I thought, well, I think actually the differentiating point between the various interior design practitioners, or at least people who claim to be interior designers, are those who are motivated by concept and ideas, and those who are decorators, really. And there's the superficial, without wanting to sound pejorative, and then there's the more fundamental way of approaching things, which is about thoughts and ideas and concepts.
So that the former is typified by all the stuff you see in the magazines, how to get the look, transformation of spaces, which I think is a great part of the sector. Yes. But I think what you practice and what we try and teach as well is a bit more deeper thinking about spaces.
Yes, and it's not to be sort of intellectually superior at all. From my perspective, what I find really exciting about interior design is how space can influence the way we feel, how space can influence the way we operate and behave, and influence the way other people operate and behave. The potential in interior design and the potential in design to enhance quality of life. And decor obviously has a role to play in that, but what I find personally most exciting is the conceptual side of it, and working from concept all the way through to the execution of decor. So it's not just a kind of superficial treatment. And actually, I find it really difficult to choose cushions and curtains.
That's very subjective, isn't it? I think I like the client to do that myself.
Yeah, I like the logic. I like logic.
Yeah.
I like logic framed by, I just like the combination of logic and art, and when the two come together, that's the kind of sweet spot for me.
Yeah, and when you say concept, what do you mean? What does concept mean to you?
Concept for me really, when it comes to approaching an interior design project, is it's thinking and exploring. So if I'm given a project, the first thing I'll do is investigate what the site is all about, investigate what the building is all about, investigate what the client is about, what they want to achieve, what their end user wants to achieve. So there are 4 things there that you need to interrogate, and then you come up with a concept is just a fancy word or a different word for an idea, really good, strong idea that responds to all the requirements and expresses the best characteristics
and
of
is
the
that
site or building.
that's a mixture of practical considerations, space use and best use of the space, but also that sort of emotional contact.
Exactly, spot on. Yeah. So that's what really excites me, the potential for creating really positive emotional spaces through very careful practical considerations and very sensitive artistic execution.
Yeah, I think for me that resonates because I like places to work really efficiently and well. Good use of space. And the aesthetics come secondary, I think. It's if a place doesn't work, it doesn't matter what it looks like, really. It's pleasing when they come together as one. With some of the work you've done in the student accommodation sector, would you say, I think narrative and that aesthetic language that you create is very important from a user's point of view, because that's the impression they get when they come into the space. Where does that come from? I'm thinking particularly of the IQ in Shoreditch.
Narrative.
It's a few years ago now, if you can still remember.
It is. Funny enough, the client's just come back to me. Yeah, that was my very first student accommodation project. Narrative for me is, when it comes to design, when it comes to interior design, is fundamental, really. You want to tell the story of a building. It's romance. That's what I love about it. Yeah. It's romance and Roman. It's about telling a story, and it's telling a story about the place and a site and connecting people to that space in an emotional way. And actually I would sort of counter what you were saying earlier, is that spaces that aren't practical, it's practicality first, aesthetics next. Yes and no. Spaces definitely have to work and aesthetics will be compromised if spaces don't work. But at the same time, I think there's great enrichment to be got from just being in a very beautiful space.
So practicality isn't the sole driver there, so you could overcome space.
Yes. I mean, you could take a parallel with fashion. Some people say, and I think it was Diana Vreeland said, comfort is irrelevant when it comes to fashion. You just want to look fabulous. Yeah. And I would agree to some extent. I mean, that's not to say that I don't pay a lot of attention to practicalities, but you want equal attention to both. You want it obviously to work, and you want it to look gorgeous and be gorgeous and endure as well. Yeah. That's really important, and especially in student accommodation, durability is so critical.
That's all they ever talk about, isn't it? How long is it going to last? Yeah. And how? Well, they sound like a load of vandals. Students. The way they're described by some of the FM people. But so, what do you think you're trying to achieve for that student coming through the door of one of your spaces? What are you trying to make them feel like?
I want them to feel at home but excited at the same time. So I do a lot of ongoing research with students and with all my client cohorts, really. So I don't just design student accommodation, but I design hotels and I design private resi, what's called build to rent, and I do all sorts of things. And I'm always talking to our end user. I think that's really important. Otherwise you can just get really isolated in your little design bubble. Yeah. And one thing I strongly believe is that design is a humanity. It's not an art, it's about human beings. It's not really about art and design. You start with human beings first. And
that sort of dreadful phrase of user-focused.
Or human-centred.
Human-centred, yeah. For a change, we're going to design with the user in mind.
Yeah, I mean, why would you not?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just stupid. Yeah. It's like those practices that say we're design-led. Well, what the fuck are you led by otherwise?
Yeah.
Led by, I don't know, butchery.
Greed.
A butchery-led, design practice.
If you're designing butchers' places, then it's probably quite useful. But
yes, so to your point about students, one of the things I was always very conscious of is that a lot of private student accommodation is populated by students who are a long way, thousands of miles away from home often, for the very first time, in a very foreign culture. That can be terribly, it can be quite frightening.
Yeah.
It can make you feel very vulnerable, and students really want places to feel like home.
And that for you, it's an important factor, isn't it, of feeling relaxed and comfortable,
yeah,
and relieving the stresses of being away from home,
yeah,
in an environment that supports what they need to do. Because
yeah,
student accommodation has changed massively since I was at college. Well, you just have bedrooms, wouldn't you?
yeah.
Now you've got mixed spaces, communal spaces. Perhaps you could just talk about the importance of those communal spaces in terms of design features and how they contribute to the student experience.
Well, communal space, when I design communal spaces, I always think about the extrovert and the introvert and designing spaces so that both can feel comfortable. Deploy techniques, not techniques, but sort of observations such as prospect and retreat. And what that really means is making sure people have good visibility through a space, making spaces really legible as well. We work very closely with a branding and signage company, and for our projects over the last few years, we've insisted that they, not quite insisted, but strongly advised that they also design all the signage, because we'll design these beautiful spaces and then the signage will be left to the builder, basically. Having nicely designed, cleverly designed signage absolutely makes the scheme.
So that's a kind of holistic approach to the design.
Yeah.
Consistency.
Totally, and you've got to think about materials. So typically when you've got amenity spaces, you've got large open plan spaces that can be highly resonant. So you've got to think about sound. So that's what excites me about design as well, perceiving spaces with senses other than the visual.
Yeah.
So sound, even scent. So I'm doing a project in Hoxton at the moment, which is very human-led and very oriented around well-being. We are having cushions made that are full of lavender or rosemary, so that when you sit against them, it crushes and it releases these oils.
Smell is the one tricky one, unless you, like the supermarkets do, they're pumping bakery smells through the spaces. But yes, I think scent is something that's hard to incorporate because no one actually knows what materials smell like, do they?
No,
really?
They don't. Dinison did, the flooring people did a really wonderful installation recently as part of Clerkenwell Design Week, which unfortunately I wasn't able to go to, but that sounded fascinating. Of course, wood has such a beautiful smell, especially the oils that particular flooring company use. Yes, and also material, even furniture, you want the furniture to feel soft, you want it to feel comfortable, not hard. I go into a lot of student accommodation where it feels like the worst kind of airport lounge. Very bright colours, quite infantile, furniture's very hard. The lighting is so harsh as well, so we do a lot of work on lighting within the confines of typically very limited budgets.
And you said you're working not just in student accommodation, but also there's this sort of post-college adults living in the same space, shared living. Yeah. Does that have the same sort of, can you transfer your kind of approach from students into those spaces, or do they need to be different?
Probably controversially, yes, I do think
just
you
like
can.
that.
Spinning. Yeah. Yes, I do. And there are kind of two versions of it. And I think the whole industry is really getting its knickers in a twist about what to call what kind of scheme. But in summary, I suppose you have co-living, which is almost a direct translation of student accommodation for non-students, and you could characterise that as smaller private living spaces, micro-living almost, with shared amenities, and that's probably at the lower middle end of the market. And then the middle upper end of the market is, again, it's really characterised by space. So you have larger apartments, you have studios, 1 bed, 2 bed, 3 bed, whatever apartments, but kind of normal sized apartments, and then you've got all the amenities, but they're purpose built to rent. And the benefits are fantastic service. There's a wonderful opportunity for multi-generational living as well. It professionalises the rental market. People will also say, I'm sure, that rise of the rental market like this, or the professional rental market, is a response to the paucity of housing to buy, and that's not a good thing.
And the expense of it, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Are there any specific challenges designing for those different markets? Well,
yes, because you've got to provide a great deal of flexibility and variety without excluding anyone. That can be quite tricky. So the thing to do is actually work very, very closely with your client, with your management company. The client and you as the designer need to be very clear on who your client is. I mean, that sounds basic.
Yeah.
But
Are the
sometimes people forget that.
Yes. Yeah. It seems obvious, doesn't it, to think, right, who am I designing this for? But you see so many spaces where you think, well, who were they designing this for?
Well, yeah, I think people, you look at some spaces and you think, oh, that's just been designed because it's trendy.
Yeah.
That's that trend. Or sometimes you have to remind clients that you're not designing for them, you're designing for their customer.
Yeah, and I guess it's also about when the design is plugged into that whole programme, because I'm recently up in Swansea looking at some work where they're refurbishing what are fairly new buildings, and it seems that the communal spaces were not designed as an afterthought, but they just don't seem to gel. It's been taken over by a new operator. It's the first thing they're looking at, and it seems that maybe there wasn't a designer early enough in the programme. When do you typically get involved in?
Usually too late.
Too late, yeah. I thought you might say that. Yeah.
Yeah, usually too late. I mean, and then it's just kick, bollock, scramble.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a lot of TV and film prior to then, prior to doing the TV. So I have got used to doing things really quickly. And that's one of the things I train my team in as well. And it often comes as a surprise to them how quickly things can be done. But
it's true, that can be done. But I guess we've had the experience of things like those lampshade orders.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's great. Here's a wonderful opportunity, but then they tell you when they want them delivered, which is in about 3 weeks' time.
Yeah.
Bespoke item, made to order. The reality of what you can deliver becomes very narrow in that sense. But getting in on the process early. Have you managed to improve that with your clients?
No, it seems to be getting worse.
Right. Okay.
It seems to be. Yeah. I think the thing is, appointment as an interior designer is partly dependent on funding, and funding has gone under some wobbles recently post boring Brexit. It's not easy, but you've just got to keep banging the drum and remind clients it's not going to cost them more if they get you in early. I mean, you could even do some kind of fee deal where you say, look, we'll suspend fees until you get your funding, but if you can get us in early, at least we can just lay down something. The most critical thing is M&E. If you can't get in early, you can't influence M&E, and that really restricts your opportunities.
So you're fixed with whatever services are coming in. Yeah,
that's right. Electrical points.
Yeah.
So that means your lighting is where it is, your power is where it is. And can you imagine how onerous that is when it comes to designing interior design scheme?
I've done that.
Very hard.
I've done that with office fit outs, where you come up with a concept and then you're given where the position of all the sockets are, and it's like, that's not going to work.
That's wrong. I mean, we've done a scheme recently, massive scheme, where it was all fixed, so we've had to design something that comes from the ceiling, so that we've got much more flexibility by bringing power through from the ceiling.
But there's your criteria, your kind of constraints, which is what design is like, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
It's good to have some
I
constraints.
do like restraints.
Yes.
Jonathan.
Yeah. The more the better, I think.
The tighter. The more thrilling.
Yes. Well, that's part and parcel of that process of kind of the design process, and the slight suggestion of double entendre has thrown me off here, but I'm going to soldier on.
Soldier on, babe.
You mentioned the TV. Now, sometimes you're described as celebrity interior designer, and I'm guessing that's from your... I don't know how long it was, but it seemed like a fruitful period in front of the lens. Famous programmes like DIY SOS, and I have to say I didn't really see very many of them.
Didn't you, Jonathan? That's
amazingly not. But I know you from that. Prior to that,
you did.
When you set up a design agency, Echo Design.
I did.
We won't mention how long ago that was, but we
like eons,
joined you.
Practically a century.
It was in the last century.
It was in the last century.
Yeah.
Oh God, we're so old.
Oh God.
And wise, darling, wise.
I was thinking about that. We are wiser than we were.
Tiny bit.
A little bit.
Sometimes.
But what prompted you to set up that agency? Because you studied design. You set up a design agency. So I'm just going to get a few questions in one here. You set up a design agency. What prompted you to set up the design agency? And then what what was the shift between running a design agency, where you were sort of a kind of broker for design agencies, design companies like ourselves, we were working with you. What what prompted you to shift towards doing the design yourself?
Well, I've had a bit of a portfolio career, Jonathan. So I did study design at Kingston for a couple of terms before I dropped out because it's just so boring and slow.
Many people do.
Oy vey. So so I left, and also I had no money. I was absolutely stony broke.
Right.
I'd left home. I'd left home at 17, and I'd already gone to do a BTEC. So I was absolutely broke. Had to get a job. Got a job.
Right.
Went to work in advertising because I had a girlfriend who was working in an ad agency, and she was leaving, so I got that job. And I loved that job. And actually, that's how I met my husband. But anyway, putting that to one side, what became apparent is that the way that photographers and illustrators would sell their work to advertising agencies was through agents. So back then, you'd have agents pitching up to agencies with portfolios to sell. And then I thought, and I still had lots of mates from Kingston and people like you doing really great stuff. And then on the other hand, I was becoming exposed to clients, pretty major clients like Liberty, for example, or Nike or BAFTA. And they would want to hire great young talent but wouldn't know how to source it. So, light bulb moment, I thought, let's put the two together. And that's how I came up with Echo Design Agency. So I left advertising, set up this agency, signed up a roster of great young practices like yours, Forster
I just want to
Inc.
emphasise the great and the young element of that. I say it was a long time ago. It was a good time, actually, because it sort of professionalised the process for us in a way that previously we weren't exposed to. There was a sort of a legitimacy of it. We were part of a stable of recognised designers.
You were. Well, I don't know whether you remember, but I represented David Adjaye.
Yeah.
We had that great little furniture exhibition in Selfridges,
Yeah,
Tasty. We did Crash Bang Wallop in the old bus station in King's Cross. Supermarchitecture with a special selection.
Golden years, weren't they?
Golden years.
It was good. But moving from that, just to segue into
sorry.
That's all right.
How later on. It's all about me.
This is what it is. It is all about you. This is why you're being interviewed.
We did all those exhibitions. Those got loads of publicity. It was fantastic for people I was representing. It really launched people's careers, genuinely. And I got a bit of coverage as well. And that's when I came to the attention of TV companies, and that's when I was asked to present these TV shows.
Yes.
And then while I was doing that, I thought, I quite fancy doing it myself. So that's when I set up my own agency, and that was it.
So you must have had a natural ability, would you? Because you didn't go and learn it for 3 years like most people.
I guess so, yes. I mean, I did, like I said, a BTEC diploma at what was then Wilsden College of Technology, which sounds rather unsalubrious. And in those days, the interior design course sat alongside bricklaying and plumbing, and so it was full of lovely fresh young boys. But it was a wonderful year because we had some really fabulous people in that year, and I learnt a lot then. And it was a wonderful release after school and not knowing what I wanted to do and thinking I was going to be a doctor or a lawyer or something boring like that. So I did that, and then obviously went on to Kingston. But yes, partly innate ability, but then everybody kind of follows their innate ability into something one hopes, and then some really good theory and just creative liberty and guidance when I was at Wilsden. I found Kingston, those two terms, rather dull and not useful. And then the rest of it, just learning on the job.
Yeah.
And also when I was at college, I worked on a lot of student films. So just the practicality of making things, designing and making and execution. I've always been interested in that.
It's a lot about being organised. I think just thinking about what characteristics you have or what people need to be successful. It's not just about being creative, is it?
No, God, no.
Working in those environments with lots of different types of businesses.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is organisation.
Yeah.
Just organisation, multitasking, confidence, which I have a lot of trouble with actually, but try not to. The way I kind of counteract it is just reminding myself that a lot of it is just common sense.
Thanks to Naomi for taking the time to talk to me. She mentioned her approach to designing student accommodation, and if you're designing communal spaces for students, Naomi's approach of using prospect and retreat is an important technique to help create and manage social opportunities for students to meet and interact. Socialising is an important part of student life that is best supported by a mix of spaces, from more open space through to more intimate. Visibility of spaces, both as you approach and once you're inside a space, is really critical, particularly for more introverted students who may feel nervous when entering an area that they are unfamiliar with or is particularly open plan and exposed. Students hate walking into large open plan spaces. It's much more effective to create a series of linked spaces that lead from one to the other. You need to consider the potential journey of users as they enter and move forward into a space and enable students to see and navigate effectively. The key is really to overcome the psychological barrier to the use of space. I hear a lot of stories about students who like the look of a space, but then say, "Oh no, I wouldn't go in there." Prospect provides the opportunity to venture. Retreat provides a destination space to feel more comfortable in.
We're going to be testing this out with our students from the University of Plymouth's Interior Design course when they work on a live project at Swansea University with accommodation provider UPP. We'll be exploring the concept of prospect and retreat, getting into proxemics, and introducing key professional practice skills of specification and budgeting. If you want to find out more about how to be a kick-ass designer, follow the links on the notes. So there you go. Thanks very much for listening to our first edition. There's a bonus Meet the Supplier podcast, which you can have a listen to, where we talk to Forster Inc, the Italian lighting company. I'd like to thank Dave Clark from I Am The How for production support and invaluable advice during the setting up of this podcast. Kay Hansen for her planning support and co-hosting role. You'll meet Kay later on in the series. Mark Frith for composing the music and all your support and advice along the way. Our next episode features ergonomist Kirsty Angerer. She's a fantastically inspiring and knowledgeable ergonomist. I'd really like to hear your feedback on the podcast. Leave a comment or get in touch via Twitter. And thanks for listening. Bye for now.
Jesus.